The bus stop on Madison Avenue was nearly empty at 9 o'clock on Christmas night. Most of the city had retreated indoors hours ago, gathered around trees and tables, surrounded by family and warmth. But Andrew Sterling sat alone on the cold bench, his expensive navy suit offering little protection against the December wind, a paper coffee cup cooling in his hand. At 42, Andrew was the founder and CEO of Sterling Innovations, a tech company worth $3 billion. His face had been on the cover of Fortune magazine twice. He owned a penthouse that overlooked Central Park, drove cars that cost more than most people's houses, and had more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. What he didn't have, what he'd traded away in pursuit of all that. Success was anyone to spend Christmas with. His parents had passed away years ago. His sister lived in London with her family and had stopped inviting him to visit after he'd canceled on her too many times, always because of work. His last relationship had ended 18 months ago, when his girlfriend had finally accepted that she would always come second to his company. So Andrew had spent Christmas Day the way he spent most days, in his office, working on a presentation, reviewing quarterly projections, planning the next acquisition. When he'd finally looked up from his laptop, it was dark outside, and he'd realized he'd forgotten to eat. He'd walked to the nearest place still open, gotten coffee and a sandwich he'd barely tasted, and now he was sitting at a bus stop because he couldn't face going back to his empty apartment just yet. The Christmas tree visible across the street glowed with white lights, mocking him with its beauty. Somewhere nearby, he could hear laughter from a restaurant still serving late diners, the sounds of life, of connection, of everything he'd somehow lost along the way. "Excuse me, mister?" The small voice startled Andrew out of his thoughts. He looked down to find a little boy standing in front of him, maybe 4 years old, with curly brown hair and wearing a red sweater that had seen better days. His jeans were worn at the knees and his shoes were scuffed, but his eyes were bright with that particular hopefulness that only children possess. "Yes?" Andrew said, his voice rougher than intended from disuse. He hadn't spoken to anyone all day. The boy studied him with the frank assessment of childhood. "Are you sad? You look really sad." Andrew felt something catch in his chest. "I'm fine. Are you here alone? Where are your parents?" "My mom's inside." The boy pointed to a small convenience store a few doors down. "She's trying to see if they have any food left." "We're hungry." He said this matter-of-factly without self-pity, just stating a truth. "I'm Charlie, by the way." "Andrew?" He found himself shaking the small hand that was extended to him, surprised by the child's confident manner. Charlie sat down on the bench beside him, uninvited but somehow not unwelcome. "It's Christmas," he announced, as if Andrew might not be aware. "Did you get any presents?" "No," Andrew admitted. "Did you?" Charlie shook his head, and for the first time, his cheerful demeanor cracked slightly. "Mom said Santa forgot us again this year, but I think—" He lowered his voice conspiratorially. "I think it's because we don't have a house right now. We've been staying at different places. Maybe Santa couldn't find us." The words hit Andrew like a physical blow. This child, this bright, hopeful little boy, was homeless on Christmas night, and he was trying to make sense of why he'd been forgotten. "Where have you been staying?" Andrew asked gently. "Sometimes at shelters, sometimes with Mom's friend, but she said we can't stay anymore because her boyfriend doesn't like kids." Charlie swung his legs, too short to reach the ground. "Tonight we're going to take the bus somewhere. Mom says she has a plan, but she's been crying a lot. She tries to hide it, but I know." Andrew felt something shifting inside him, something that had been frozen for years beginning to thaw. "What's your mom's name?" "Jennifer." "Jennifer Parker. She's really nice, and she works really hard. She had a job at a restaurant. But they closed down 2 weeks ago, and now she's trying to find a new one. But it's hard because she has to take care of me and—" Charlie stopped abruptly, as if realizing he'd said too much. "Are you going to call the police?" "What? No, why would I call the police?" "Sometimes people do when they find out we don't have a home. They think Mom's a bad mom, but she's not. She's the best mom. We just had some bad luck." Andrew's throat tightened. "I'm not going to call the police, Charlie. I promise." The boy relaxed visibly. "Good, because Mom's trying really hard. She reads to me every night, even when she's tired. And she shares her food with me even when there's not much. And she tells me that things are going to get better, we just have to keep trying." A woman emerged from the convenience store, and Andrew knew immediately it was Jennifer. She was young, maybe 30, with light brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a thin jacket that wasn't warm enough for the weather. She carried a small plastic bag and looked exhausted in a way that went bone deep. She spotted Charlie on the bench, and her expression shifted to alarm. She hurried over. "Charlie, I told you to wait by the door. You can't just talk to strangers." She stopped when she saw Andrew, and he recognized the wariness in her eyes, the defensive stance of someone who'd learned to expect judgment. "I'm sorry," Jennifer said quickly. "My son didn't mean to bother you." "He didn't bother me," Andrew said, standing. "We were just talking. I'm Andrew." "Jennifer." She didn't extend her hand, keeping both arms wrapped around the plastic bag as if it contained something precious. "Come on, Charlie. The bus will be here soon." "Where are you headed?" Andrew asked. The question came out before he could think better of it. Before the old Andrew, the one who kept his head down and minded his own business, could stop him. Jennifer hesitated. "There's a 24-hour diner in Queens that lets people sit as long as they want if they order something. We'll stay there tonight, and tomorrow I have a lead on a room for rent." Andrew looked at this woman, exhausted, scared but still standing, still fighting for her child, and he made a decision that would have shocked anyone who knew him. "I have a better idea," he said. "I have a guest room in my apartment. 2, actually. You and Charlie could stay there, just for tonight, somewhere warm and safe where you can actually sleep." Jennifer's eyes widened, then narrowed with suspicion. I can't. "We don't accept that kind of—" "I'm not suggesting anything inappropriate," Andrew said quickly, understanding her fear. "Separate rooms, locks on the doors. He looked at Charlie, who was watching this exchange with hopeful eyes. "I just can't send a child to spend Christmas night in a diner when I have empty rooms sitting unused. Please. No strings attached. Just a safe place to sleep." "Why would you do this?" Jennifer asked, and Andrew heard the exhaustion in her voice, the bone tiredness of someone who'd been fighting too hard for too long. "You don't know us." "Because your son asked me if I was sad, and I am. I've been sad for years, I think. But I buried it under work and success and telling myself that being alone was what I wanted." Andrew surprised himself with his honesty. "And because it's Christmas, and no one should spend it hungry and scared. And because—" He paused, trying to articulate something he was only just beginning to understand. "Because I think maybe I needed someone to remind me what really matters." Jennifer stared at him, trying to read his intentions, trying to assess whether this was safe or dangerous. Charlie tugged on her jacket. "Mom, I'm really cold." "And really tired. Can we please?" The simple plea from her child decided it. Jennifer nodded slowly. "Just tonight. And we'll leave first thing in the morning." "That's fine," Andrew agreed. He gestured to a waiting taxi. "My apartment is just a few blocks away." They rode in silence, Charlie pressed against his mother's side, occasionally sneaking glances at Andrew. Jennifer kept her arm around her son, protective and wary. Andrew found himself hoping his apartment wouldn't intimidate them, that they wouldn't feel uncomfortable in his world of luxury. The doorman greeted Andrew with surprise. Mr. Sterling almost never came in through the main entrance, and certainly never with guests. But he was professional enough not to comment, simply holding the door and wishing them a Merry Christmas. In the elevator, Charlie's eyes grew wide. "We're going really high up." 28th floor, Andrew confirmed. "There's a good view of the park." The apartment was exactly as Andrew had left it that morning. Pristine, impersonal, more like a hotel suite than a home. He saw Jennifer taking it in, saw her shoulders tense at the obvious wealth on display. "I know it's a bit much," Andrew said. "I'm not here often enough to make it feel like an actual home." "It's beautiful," Jennifer said quietly. "We'll be very careful. We won't break anything." "I'm not worried about that." Andrew showed them to the guest rooms, 2 bedrooms side by side, each with its own bathroom. He grabbed fresh towels, found some of his own clothes that Jennifer could sleep in. "There's food in the kitchen. Help yourselves to anything. I'll be down the hall if you need anything." Charlie was already exploring his room, delighted by the soft bed and the view of the city lights. Jennifer stood in the hallway, looking overwhelmed. "Thank you," she said, and her voice cracked. "You have no idea what this means. To have somewhere safe, somewhere warm."
"I've been so scared."
Trying to keep it together for Charlie, but I've been terrified. How long have you been homeless? Andrew